Hello, I'm Barry Silverberg, Director of the Center for Nonprofit Studies at Austin Community College, and this is Civil Society, a periodic podcast to provoke more thinking about issues affecting nonprofit effectiveness and success. My guest today is Mark Kiester, the retired CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Austin area. Previously, he was Executive Director of the Town Lake YMCA and Chief Development Officer for the YMCA Austin. After about 20 years of that kind of work, Mark finally retired. Prior to his human service leadership, Mark spent 22 years in the media and advertising services. Despite his initial gruffness, Mark is a compassionate and persistent evangelist for serving the youth of our community. We've been colleagues, and I'm not sure if I could use that word friends, for well over 15 years. He's here today because with age and experience comes wisdom. So Mark, why do you care so much about youth?
It's pretty simple. I mean, they're 28% of our population, they're 100% of our future. And unfortunately, in a lot of areas of our country, and we don't invest enough resources in the development of our children to ensure they have what we call great futures. Mm-hmm. And whereas I've never done any direct work with youth, except for maybe I guess in the Boy Scouts and stuff like that, when I was a youth myself, so to speak.
That would have been a long, long time ago.
That was a very long time ago. Longer ago than I care to admit. But I look much younger than I am.
I know.
But I just always felt that kids needed all kids need all the structure and support and guidance that you can give them. And in my particular case, my gift was resource development to help organizations like the Y and the Boys and Girls Clubs and some other not-for-profits I've served on boards of get the resources they need to serve children.
So you entered this from the fundraising perspective, mm-hmm. and then you went on to take the helm of the Boys and Girls Clubs. So what is the mission of the Boys and Girls Clubs?
Well, to enable and inspire all kids, but especially those that need us most, to reach their full potential, to become productive, caring, responsible citizens.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of programs? Just very quickly, because I just want to
paint a picture for the audience. It's very, very broad. It's from things as simple as youth sports to advanced STEM programs to nutrition programs. We feed the kids every day. We make sure they get lots of physical activities. The Boys and Girls Club program is very structured. It's very intentional, but it's camouflage learning. It's learning through fun. It's learning through activity. It's everything they do, especially here in Austin and Bastrop County. It's all TEKS aligned. It's everything the club does is designed to support what's going on in the classrooms at our schools.
I like that notion of camouflage learning.
Well, it is.
I'm going to have to use that in terms of our own programs. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And how many youth? What is, quote, the market for Boys and Girls Club?
The last time I've been kind of
just generally.
Yeah, generally the last hard figure I saw, and we did several years ago. We did what we call a hard count of kids that are Title I kids. Those are kids that are entitled to free or reduced lunches, which are normally on the lower end of the socioeconomic strata in any community. And the hard count, we called schools and providers, which are about 67,000 kids that would qualify as Title I. And the Boys and Girls Club is the largest single provider of programs to that group, but they're only serving 15,000. So now there's other people serving it, and we're very fortunate in Travis County at least that about the market penetration of all program suppliers is about 44%. So if you take 44% of 65,000, you still have a huge number of kids that could benefit from programs from the Boys and Girls Clubs and like not-for-profits and agencies like Creative Action, for example, could benefit from that type of structured intentional programming.
So what may or may not be an obvious question, why are those kids not taking advantage of those kinds of services?
Well, it's not so much taking advantage of, is availability, okay? The big obstacles, like everything else, is first money, okay? I mean, even though the Boys and Girls Club is highly efficient and can serve, it spends about $500, $525 a year to provide all its programming to one child. but multiply that by the number of kids
Sure.
that need those services. And unfortunately, despite a lot of work that I've done in my career, we don't get a lot of public support for those types of programs. I was on the out of school time council for TEA, Texas Education Agency, for 2 years. And pushing that boulder up the hill, we couldn't get it an inch. We were trying to get the legislature to even do a challenge grant, so to speak, of $10 million. Now, they would spend $15 million in trying to find out about steroids and usage, which was a big, they flunked out of several years ago. But it was just, you just couldn't get anybody to listen. I mean, they recognize the situation you have with out-of-school time programming is some people, and especially politicians, they see it as something nice to have. But it's a need to have for a lot of our kids, okay? Now, our middle-income kids, our upper-income kids, they have lots of out-of-school time programming, but their mommy and daddies are writing nice checks for them, okay? We have kids at Boys and Girls Club, they don't have a computer, they've never been downtown on a field trip. I mean, they can't go to fancy basketball camps or arts camps and theater camps because their parents don't have the funds to do it. So the big obstacle in serving those kids is having the funds to make them available to them.
So it's access. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's access, and access equals money.
So what are the kinds of challenges that the youth who come to boys and girls clubs, what are the challenges they have?
Well, first of all, you got to look at the demographic. A lot of them come from a single mom or single dad households. A lot of them are not being raised by their natural parents. They may be a single guardian. A lot of them come from parents that have some incarceration, drug, alcohol problems. I mean, I could tell you lots of anecdotal stories that would upset you, but I won't do that because they upset me. But they just don't have the depth of support that other kids have. And we've always found the kids we do the best with are the ones where the mother or the father or the guardian, which could be a brother, could be a sister, could be a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle, says, I can't be home for you after school because I have to work so that we can eat. But you got to get yourself to the Boys and Girls Club every day after school. That's where I expect you to be. And those kids, when they have that level of support, they're just like everybody else. They're going to graduate from high school. And the high school graduation rate for Boys and Girls Club members is like 99%.
Wow.
I mean, it's better than, their school attendance is better, their grades are better, their graduation rates are better. Then on the second level, we have, some guardians that they don't care. Well, you can go do what you want to do. And we actually kind of reach out to them. We try to find them in the schools. I mean, there was one kid a few years ago named Marcus Walls, who I'm very fond of. He was just kind of wandering around LBJ High School. He didn't know what to do. He didn't have a place to go after school. He was being raised by his aunt, and she had to work. And he walked into the Boys and Girls Club one day, and they said, well, where are you going? They said, well, I just thought, they said, no, man, you need to stay here because you're going to be a leader. Long story short, 3 years later, he's gone. 4 years later, he's on a scholarship at McCombs. So they have the capability to excel. They just need that interpersonal relationship with a caring adult that's not a family member to help them get through whatever obstacles they have. I mean, imagine, we feed these kids every day.
So they need that personal attention.
It's all about relationships.
Right.
And any type of developmental work, it's always about relationships. I mean, whether you're working with like the Mobile Loaves and Fishes people, they work with homeless. And it's not they're giving them homes, they're giving them a support structure.
Right.
We work with kids and we give them support structures.
So, very interesting. So based upon your experience and familiarity with the field, has the basic needs that these youth are having changing over time? And where might those needs be going? Is there need to build structures and programs for different needs than currently exist?
Yeah, well, I think, and we hear it a lot. The thing with Austin and Central Texas is the affordability issues. And what we're seeing is our working class families, which are moving eastward. Okay, they're at Maynard, they're in Bastrop, they're at Elgin. So the need is, it's interesting because as our working class who supports the major businesses and builds our roads and cleans our streets and runs our restaurants, they're being pushed further out away from where they need to be to work. Well, as they push out, their kids push out. And that's why, if you look at the Boys and Girls Club, besides the those that are in Title I schools, that's why they're now doing Bastrop, Smithville, Elgin. That's why the new home club that was written about in the paper today is going to be in Northeast Austin, because you have to go where the kids are.
Right.
So, and I think also what's happening, although I haven't seen any recent statistics on it, I would assume that due to the overall population growth, the number of Title I kids is probably not decreasing. If anything, it's probably staying the same, and it may be increasing some.
Based upon your experience and that newfound wisdom I introduced you with, what lessons, your experience, would you tell somebody entering the arena of human services, working with youth?
Well, I think that the first thing, and when you're the CEO of an organization like that, you do a lot of recruiting, not employees, but volunteers, primarily board members. And so I use that analogy.
Yeah, please.
The first thing that I always looked at in a potential board candidate was how they felt about kids, okay? A, did they have kids, okay? And B, had they been involved in activities with kids, youth sports, big brothers, big sisters, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, what have you. Because to be effective at this type of work, at the policy level and the fundraising level, you have to have a real passion for kids, and then you have to be. It's almost like a guilt thing. The best ones are the ones that feel bad that their kids have so much and these kids have so little, and they feel a responsibility to make sure these kids at least get some of what their kids are getting. And those, by far and large, are the single most effective volunteers I've ever had in the Boys and Girls Club to this day. When it comes to staff, what we look for is, and it's a gift, and I don't have it, I call them the kid whisperers. And they're just amazing. I look at the Boys and Girls Club staff and some staffs of other organizations, what they can, kids just are attracted to them. And they can do, I've seen a club one time, one kid was just isolated. He's having a hard day. I don't know what the problem was. All I said was to the club director or somebody, I said, the kid probably needs some attention. And they went over there and they sat down and talked to him face to face. And the next thing I know, the kid's smiling, he's having a good time, he's engaged in activities, and I think that's a real gift. And we look, and you find a lot of that from from the schools of education, from the schools of social work, and the schools of kinesiology. A lot of what we call the jock mentality. The football players, the basketball players, etc. They make great youth development counselors because I think they're always kind of kids in their own right.
Yeah, that's. So, I'm not sure if you've answered this before, but I'll ask it again. The future. How are the needs of kids changing in the future?
I don't think they ever really change. I
can be the way I am forever.
Well, it probably can. I think the deal. I think. Obviously technology and all that stuff. There's social media. There's all those challenges, but what kids basically need to be successful, which is a relationship with a family to start with, as much of a family as they can possibly have. Then relationships with adults that are not necessarily family, but are very supportive, and then access to supportive developmental programs. That was what it was 100 years ago. And that will always be the same, because that's just the basic kid development cycle. Those are the things, you need food, you need shelter, you need sunshine.
You need stability.
You need stability. And someone, if you can't get it at home or at school, or, and that's where out-of-school time programming is so terribly valuable. No matter who's providing it, that they provide that support, the structure, intentionality, and the caring to let kids grow and see and exercise and become.
So, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to make sure that those who view this should be aware of?
Well, I think that the most critical thing that we touch pretty much on everything, but I do think that the message I have, and even though I'm not as actively involved in it, we as a society, we need to invest in our kids. And it's more than just the Boys and Girls Clubs and other agencies, but we need for example, and I can get away with this stuff. Philanthropically, Austin's horrible. We have all these major employers. I was reading about how Oracle's growing so much today, and I don't think they have any philanthropy. You kind of go, you have all these employees, and what's going on here? So I think that that's a real challenge for Austin, and I think as a state, and we see this with our public education system. I get this. Sometimes I get so frustrated. I feel like those people in power, especially in the executive branch, they really kind of don't care. They don't understand that you need to invest in education. If you want to have a great future and have lots of kids that can fill these jobs and stuff in the future, you've got to invest in better public schools, better universities, and organizations that support them. And I think that's a big failure of both Austin and the state of Texas.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, I want to say it on camera because we joke a lot.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you've done in your career. I just love your passion and your commitment, and I'm sure that there are probably thousands of kids who have a better life because you headed up the Boys and Girls Club.
Well, so, I appreciate that. I will humbly accept your humility.
I figured a retired person needs this stuff.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how busy you are when you're retired. God.
Thank you, Mark. Please visit our website, nonprofitaustin.org/civil society, to read more about the issues we've discussed today. Also, please share your thoughts on today's podcast. This is Barry Silverberg with Civil Society, a Center for Nonprofit Studies podcast, in collaboration with the great folks at ACC TV. Thank you for joining us.